My mother swapped me for her stepdaughter. So, I backed my father in the divorce and watched her forfeit everything. Imagine waking up one day to realize the person who swore they'd always be there, the one who gave you life, has effectively replaced you. Swapped you out for a newer, shinier model. And now? Now she wants me back. But the old me, the one who might have cared, is gone. The air in that house eventually became a suffocating weight, thick with unspoken resentments and the chilling feeling of being an afterthought. But it wasn't always like that. For years, I was the golden child, my mother's entire world. My name is Liam, and I'm 19 now. But to truly understand what happened, you need to know how my childhood began. I wasn't just my mother's son, I was her triumph. Her rescue project, she'd call me, her living proof that she could conquer anything, even raising a child essentially alone. My dad, David, was a long-haul trucker back then. He was gone for weeks, maybe home for a fleeting few days to do laundry and restock the fridge, then back on the road, always chasing that next paycheck. A good man, a dependable provider, but honestly, he was a phantom, the silent financier of our lives. My mother, Sarah, practically raised me by herself for the first 12 years. She'd boast to anyone who'd listen that we were an unbreakable team, that I was her best friend, that she needed no one else as long as she had her boy. And I swallowed every single word. Why wouldn't I? She was there for every single school play, even the disastrous ones where I botched my 3 lines. Every scraped knee, every 2 a.m. nightmare, every agonizing, awkward chat about growing up, she was my constant. While other kids grumbled about their overbearing parents or their absent ones, I just shrugged. My mom, Sarah, she was different. She actually cared. We had this ritual, every Friday night. Pizza from the same greasy spoon we'd been regulars at since I was 6. Then, a movie I got to pick, and if I'd had a solid week at school, ice cream was guaranteed. It was our thing. For 12 years, that was everything. The cracks began to show when my dad, David, finally hung up his trucker keys. He'd saved enough to launch his own auto repair shop in town, which meant, for the first time since I was in diapers, he was home. You'd think, wouldn't you, that this would be a blessing? A family finally whole, dinners together every night, all that picture-perfect, Hallmark movie nonsense. You'd be profoundly, utterly wrong. My mom, Sarah, had become accustomed to being the undisputed queen of our castle. The house, the money, my entire life, the schedule, the rules, every single decision, it all funneled through her. And then, abruptly, there was another adult, my dad, David, with opinions. Opinions about my curfew, suggestions that perhaps Sarah was a tad controlling about my friends. Their fights were relentless, the chilling, silent kind where dinner was a minefield, and every word carried hidden barbs. I'd walk downstairs, and they'd instantly clam up, fake smiles plastered on, as if I couldn't see the gaping chasm between them. That year, I ate most meals in my room. It was easier than being a human shield while they sniped at each other over the placement of the salt shaker. I was 15 when they finally, inevitably, called it quits. They sat me down in the living room, looking like they were about to deliver news of a beloved pet's demise. Sarah did most of the talking, painting it as a mutual, amicable parting, 2 adults gracefully growing apart. My dad, still in his work clothes, grease clinging stubbornly to his fingernails, just sat there. He looked like a man drowning in unspoken words. "This has nothing to do with you, Liam," Sarah said, her hand squeezing mine. "We both love you so much. That's never going to change." The irony of that statement still stings. The initial custody plan was textbook, 50-50. 1 week with my mom, Sarah, 1 with my dad, David. Standard, right? But Sarah had a knack for bending reality to her will. Doctor's appointments miraculously landed on David's days. School events. He'd hear about them last minute, if at all. Sudden emergencies would whisk me back to her place early. It was a gradual erosion, so subtle you wouldn't track it until you glanced at a calendar and realized you'd seen your father maybe 3 times in a month. David's new auto shop was barely treading water back then. He was grinding, 12-hour days, 6 days a week, just to keep the lights on. He simply didn't have the reserves to fight Sarah over every single scheduling skirmish. He'd just sigh, mutter, "Okay, Sarah," and dive back into his work. Then, roughly 8 months post-divorce, Sarah started seeing someone new. Mark. A pharmaceutical sales director. That meant a flashy car, impeccably tailored suits, and a vocabulary so slick, every sentence sounded like a corporate pitch. His BMW was his Sunday devotion. I met him twice. 2 excruciating dinners at restaurants with unpronounceable names, where he'd throw me a few superficial questions about school and sports, then spend the rest of the night detailing his investment portfolio to my mom. She didn't ask my feelings about him moving in. She informed me. It was happening, and I was expected to play the part of the happy, well-adjusted child. Then came Chloe, Mark's daughter. 15, same grade as me, but at a different school. She divided her time between Mark's place and her biological mom's house in another state. Apparently, Chloe's mom had remarried, adding 3 more kids to the mix. And Chloe, it seemed, wasn't a fan of sharing oxygen with step-siblings. So, she persuaded Mark to push for primary custody. Her mom, it was whispered, was more than happy to shed the headache, so no one put up a fight. Within a month, Chloe was unpacking boxes in what used to be our guest room. From the very first day, Chloe behaved as if she owned the entire house. She immediately claimed the guest room, the one with the private attached bathroom, despite my room always being next to the main hall bath. When I, a resident of years, meekly suggested some form of bathroom seniority, she stared at me as if I proposed she bunk in the garage. "It just makes more sense for me to have the one with the bathroom," she declared, barely glancing up from her phone. "Girls need more space. That's just how it is." And my mom, Sarah, standing right there. She just nodded. "She's got a point, sweetie. You can make it work." I could make it work. That infuriating phrase became the soundtrack to my life for the next 2 years. Chloe decided the kitchen cabinets needed a complete overhaul because she couldn't find anything. She'd complain my football games were too loud, then blast her music at all hours. Every afternoon, the family room became her study sanctuary. Mostly, it was just her scrolling Instagram while textbooks collected dust around her. And Sarah? My mom found it all utterly adorable. She'd dismiss Chloe's endless demands as charming quirks. "She's been through a lot with her parents' divorce," she'd explain. "We need to give her time to settle in." Funny, I'd also endured a divorce. But my adjustment period apparently evaporated the second a more captivating, newer model arrived on the scene. My best friend, Noah, had been in my corner since 3rd grade, and he saw it long before I could bring myself to admit it. One Saturday, he came over, and witnessed Sarah cancel our movie plans because Chloe really wanted to check out a new boutique at the mall. "Can't we just go to the movie after?" I'd asked, trying to keep my voice even, my hope clinging by a thread. Sarah barely looked my way. "We're going to be shopping for a while. Maybe next weekend." There was no next weekend. There never was. After she left, Noah just stared. "Dude, what the heck was that?" he demanded. "What was what?" I mumbled. He gestured at the door, as if Sarah's ghost still lingered. "She just bailed on you to go mall shopping with the new kid. That's messed up." I shrugged, but I felt it, deep down. Like the ache of a bruise before it even surfaces. "It's not a big deal. Chloe's still settling in." Noah shot back, "She's been here 4 months, man. How long does settling in take?" I had no answer. Just a growing, sickening dread. The first true gut punch landed around Christmas. I'd been meticulously saving every penny from my soul-crushing grocery store job, bagging, stocking, minimum wage, all to buy Sarah something genuinely special. For weeks, she'd been eyeing this beautiful cashmere scarf. I skipped lunches, picked up every extra shift, just to afford it. Christmas morning arrived. She opened my gift first, pulled out the scarf, offered a weak smile, and a quick thank you. Then, she simply set it aside. No try-on, no admiring glances. Just, set aside, as if it were a common trinket. Then Chloe presented her gift, a designer purse, clearly paid for by Mark. It probably cost more than 2 months of my grueling labor. Sarah absolutely lost her mind. Hugging Chloe, gushing about its thoughtfulness, crying about how she'd wanted this exact bag for months, holding it up, examining every stitch. She wore that purse every single day for the next month. My scarf? It remained in her closet, tag still attached. The following week, Sarah took Chloe for ear piercings at some exclusive downtown jewelry store. Matching earrings for both of them. When I, hesitantly, mentioned I'd been hoping for new headphones for months, her response was swift, save up from your job. The earrings cost $300. I saw the receipt. My headphones? $40. Mark, in his defense, wasn't inherently evil. He was just, utterly clueless. The type who clocked 60 hours a week, and then assumed everything on the home front was peachy because no one was actively hemorrhaging. He'd occasionally pat my shoulder, ask about school, then his eyes would glaze over halfway through my answer as he checked his phone. Not malicious, just disengaged. Absent when it truly counted. Chloe, though, was a far more complex equation. She possessed this uncanny ability to always present herself in the best light, leaving me to appear the difficult one. If I ever dared to complain about her, she'd adopt this bewildered, wounded expression, claiming she simply didn't realize it was an issue. If I asked for something Sarah had already given Chloe, she'd offer to share in a voice so saccharine, it instantly made me feel small and petty for even asking. Once, she devoured the leftovers I'd been meticulously saving. When I confronted her, her apology in front of Sarah was so exquisitely sweet, I wound up looking like the villain for bringing it up. Oh my gosh, Liam. I had no idea those were yours. I'm so sorry. I'll totally replace them. She never did. And my mom just told me to let it go. The true awakening happened during my junior year parent-teacher conference. Sarah had promised, she'd be there. It was the first one since the divorce where she'd be representing our household, and I had good news to share. My grades were soaring. My teachers spoke highly of me. She never showed. Chloe had a dance recital that same evening, a showcase for a studio class she'd only been taking for 3 months. That, apparently, was Sarah's priority. She didn't even tell me she wasn't coming. I stood there, a solitary figure in the school hallway, waiting, until a text popped up, something came up. My dad, David, ended up coming instead. He drove 40 minutes after a brutal day at the shop, and on the drive home, he told me he was proud. Sarah never even bothered to ask how it went. Weeks later, I had a routine doctor's appointment for a sports physical. It was Sarah's week, so she was supposed to take me. That morning, Chloe casually mentioned she needed to renew her learner's permit at the DMV. We can do the DMV after my appointment, I offered, it's only a 30-minute thing. Sarah's face clouded. But the DMV takes forever. If we go to your appointment first, we might not make it before they close. So, we go to the DMV first, then my appointment. I suggested. Your appointment's at 2. That doesn't give us enough time. I just stared. Reschedule the DMV, then. Chloe's permit expired next week, Sarah explained, she has to get this done. My mom was already grabbing her keys. Can you just ask your father to take you? I'm sure he can fit it in. I called my dad. He fitted it in. Chloe, to her twisted credit, rarely gloated overtly. She didn't have to. Sometimes, she'd just cast this knowing glance my way, a subtle confirmation that I understood my place. "I really appreciate your mom," she purred once, a few days after the DMV debacle. We were both in the kitchen. "She's been so welcoming. It must be nice having a mom who actually cares." She delivered it as if complimenting Sarah's boundless generosity. But the underlying message? It was a poisonous dart, aimed directly at my gut. I didn't respond. I just grabbed my soda and retreated to my room. Junior year, that was when the favoritism morphed from something I could deny into the undeniable, crushing reality of that household. Sarah and Mark got married in April. I stood there, a silent spectator in a ill-fitting rented suit, watching my mom pledge to love and cherish a man she'd known for barely 14 months. Chloe, naturally, was the maid of honor. She delivered a gushing speech about how grateful she was to finally have a real mother who understood her. Sarah wept. Everyone applauded. Me? I wasn't even asked to offer a toast. After the wedding, the chasm in our treatment became undeniably, infuriatingly vast. Chloe wanted to redecorate her room. Sarah hired an interior designer, let her pick custom furniture, repainted the walls 3 different times until Chloe was perfectly content. I, meanwhile, asked for a new desk chair because mine had a broken wheel and a cushion as flat as a pancake. "We'll see what's in the budget," Sarah replied. I fixed the wheel with duct tape. Chloe needed a car for her 16th birthday. Mark bought her a brand new white SUV. She didn't even have her license yet, just a learner's permit, but she needed something safe to practice in. I, on the other hand, was still driving the beat-up Honda Civic my dad, David, had given me at 16. Manual transmission, no air conditioning, paint peeling like a bad sunburn. When the transmission started slipping, I timidly asked if the family could help with repairs. "You should talk to your father about that," Sarah said, dismissing me with a wave. "That's his car, right?" His car. Not a family problem when it concerned me. Chloe then got a new laptop for school because hers was running slow. It was 8 months old. My laptop was 4 years old and took 10 minutes just to boot up. When I inquired about a replacement, Sarah told me I should be grateful for what I had. A week later, Chloe's slow laptop was in the donation pile. No one offered it to me. Noah was my lifeline, my anchor to sanity during this spiraling descent. Every fresh indignity, I'd text him, and he'd fire back with increasingly elaborate revenge schemes that we both knew I'd never actually execute. Chloe got the big room. Hide fish in her air vents. She'll never find it, but she'll smell it forever. Or, Sarah forgot your birthday dinner. We should toilet paper her SUV. Symbolism, man. He was mostly joking, but beneath the gallows humor, he saw it. He understood, having navigated his own familial implosion when his parents split. His dad had checked out too, just in a different, more passive way. "At least yours is obvious," he remarked once. "Mine just pretends everything's fine while doing absolutely nothing. Yours is actively picking someone else. Both suck, but at least you know where you stand." The other crucial person in this growing storm was Sophia, my dad's girlfriend. She'd entered our lives about a year after the divorce, a trauma nurse at County General. By the time things with Sarah reached peak toxicity, Sophia and David had been together nearly 2 years. And she treated me like an actual human being, which was a stark contrast to my existence at Sarah's house. It was Sophia who wisely suggested I start documenting everything. "Just track the incidents," she said, so I could clearly see the pattern. So, I began a meticulous log on my phone, dates, specific events, exact quotes whenever I could recall them. It felt paranoid, even petty, at first. But after a few months of scrolling through that damning list, Sophia's insight became undeniable. This wasn't me being sensitive. This wasn't jealousy. I was being systematically, purposefully pushed out. My mom had a new daughter now, a shinier, more effusive, more grateful model. And I was being phased out. Life at Sarah's became utterly unbearable. I started inventing any excuse to be elsewhere, extra shifts at work, library study sessions stretching until closing, spending more and more time at David's place, even during my designated weeks with Sarah. She barely noticed. When she did, she'd dismiss it with a comment about me being difficult, or antisocial, or just going through a phase. Never once did she ask why I didn't want to be there. Chloe, conversely, was absolutely thriving on the chaos. Every inch of space I ceded, she gleefully occupied. More time with Sarah, more inside jokes, more social media photos where I was conveniently cropped out or simply not invited. Sometimes, she'd screenshot them and send them directly to me. One was of her and Sarah getting manicures. Caption, Mother-Daughter Day. So blessed. Sarah had never called it that when it was just us. Not once in 16 years. I showed Noah one of those screenshots, and he just slowly shook his head. She's playing a whole different game than you, dude, he observed. And she's winning. He wasn't wrong. But I was still trapped, living under her roof. The breaking point ignited on a Saturday night in May. Sarah and Mark were hosting a dinner party for his work colleagues, important people, apparently. The kind of event where you're expected to suit up, plaster on a smile, and feign the perfect blended family for 3 torturous hours. I wanted no part of it. I'd already made plans with Noah for a movie, but Sarah insisted I make an appearance for at least the first hour. Make a good impression, she commanded. Fine. Whatever. I donned a button-down and descended, ready to play my part. Dinner was precisely as soul-crushing as I'd anticipated. 8 adults droning on about quarterly projections, market shares, and someone's Hamptons vacation house, while I methodically pushed chicken around my plate. Chloe sat opposite me in a designer dress, effortlessly commanding the room. She was the undisputed star, laughing at every joke, feigning interest in healthcare trends, playing the role of Mark's impeccable daughter. About an hour in, I excused myself to the bathroom. On my way back, I passed Sarah's memory wall, you know the kind. Framed photos, awards, mementos of important moments. It had been there my entire life, my first birthday, my Little League team, my 8th grade graduation. But something was chillingly different. My junior year school photo, which had proudly hung in the center for 6 months, was gone. In its place, a new picture. Sarah and Chloe, at some spa day, both in matching white robes, clinking glasses, beaming. I stood there, rooted, staring. That's when Chloe materialized behind me. She said nothing at first, just stood, a glass of sparkling water in hand, watching me, waiting. When did this happen? I asked, my voice flat, not turning around. Oh, the photo? Her voice was light, almost dismissive. Like, a few days ago. Your mom just wanted to switch things up. The old one was kind of, I don't know, outdated. I finally turned to face her. She took down my school photo. It wasn't a great shot anyway, she shrugged, one shoulder rising nonchalantly. The lighting was weird. This one looks better up there, don't you think? Really shows off the wall. It shows off our bond, I countered, the words tasting like ash. You've been here over a year. A small, smug smile touched her lips. Quality over quantity. Some people just click faster than others, right? That's nobody's fault. Look, I'm just saying, Sarah wanted someone who appreciated her, someone who actually wanted to hang out with her instead of hiding in their room all the time. She took a slow sip of water. Can you really blame her for liking that? I simply stared. The worst part? Her infuriating calm. You planned this, I finally said, my voice barely a whisper. All of it. From the start. I didn't plan anything, she replied, another shrug. I just paid attention. Your mom was lonely. She wanted a real daughter. You were being useless. She gestured at the gaping space my photo used to occupy. I guess she replaced you. With me. Then she chuckled. In that instant, something inside me snapped. I reached past her, yanked the spa photo from the wall. Her eyes widened in genuine surprise, and she recoiled. I simply let the framed picture drop. It hit the polished hardwood with a sickening crack, glass shards scattering like frozen tears. The sound was a siren. Everyone came running. Sarah first, then Mark, then half the dinner guests, jostling in the hallway. What happened? Sarah's voice was sharp, laced with an accusation already aimed squarely at me. Chloe's demeanor shifted, instantly. Her voice became tiny, her eyes welled up. I don't know. I was just walking by, and he grabbed the picture and threw it down. I think he was trying to scare me. I dropped it, I stated, my voice flat, struggling against the rising tide of adrenaline. I didn't throw anything at anyone. She was standing 3 feet away. But Sarah wasn't listening. She was already at Chloe's side, an arm protectively around her shoulders, shooting me a look so frigid it could freeze water. How dare you ruin this night, she hissed, her voice barely a whisper. How dare you scare your sister like that, after everything we've done to make her feel at home? She's not my sister. I yelled, pointing a trembling finger at the wall. And look at what was on that wall. You took down my picture and put up one of you too. Sarah's expression remained glacial. We'll discuss your behavior later. Go to your room. Now. My gaze darted to Mark. He stood there, hand on Chloe's back, looking profoundly uncomfortable, but utterly silent. The dinner guests were a cacophony of whispers. That's when the final, fragile thread inside me snapped. Months, years, of piled-up rage, of being treated like I ceased to exist, erupted. You don't even care. I choked out, you don't even see it. Room. Now. I went. But not to my room. I went upstairs, shoved everything I could into 2 duffel bags, climbed out my window onto the garage roof, dropped down to the lawn, and walked 3 silent miles to my dad's apartment in the dark. I was irrevocably, utterly done. I materialized at David's apartment around midnight, drenched in sweat, the duffel bags digging raw furrows into my shoulders. He opened the door in sweatpants and a faded band t-shirt, took one look at my ravaged face, and simply stepped aside. No questions. That was my dad. Just a couch to collapse on, and an unspoken promise that we'd tackle it all in the morning. Sophia, bless her, made breakfast the next day. Eggs, toast, coffee. She sat opposite me, quietly, as I unspooled the entire saga. The favoritism, the insidious screenshots, the memory wall, the explosive fight, every agonizing detail I could dredge up. David listened, silent, his jaw tightening with each fresh incident. When I finally finished, he calmly set down his coffee cup and spoke just 3 words. You're staying here. No suggestion of working it out. No both sides false equivalency. Just immediate, rock-solid, unconditional support. Sarah, predictably, spiraled. She called David's phone 6 times that first day. When he didn't pick up, she barraged mine. Her voicemails morphed from feigned concern, I just want to know you're okay, to incandescent fury, you can't just run away every time things get hard, to outright threats, if you're not home by the end of the week, there's going to be serious consequences. Mark even tried once. An awkward, rambling voicemail about families working through things and running away not being the answer. For a fleeting moment, I almost felt a flicker of pity for him. He seemed genuinely baffled. Then, I remembered every single time he'd watched Sarah sideline me and said absolutely nothing, and that fleeting sympathy evaporated. I ignored them all. David did too. What he did do, however, was call Arthur, a family law attorney he'd known since high school. Arthur specialized in divorces and custody battles, and he owed David a significant favor from years ago when my dad had fixed his transmission, free of charge. This is where the tide unequivocally turned. Sarah had grown complacent in her absolute control. For over a year, she'd brazenly manipulated custody schedules, deliberately excluded David from school events and medical appointments, systematically shrinking his presence in my life to a mere couple of weekends a month. She'd gotten arrogant, sloppy, because she'd never encountered any real resistance. Arthur began his meticulous excavation. The child support David had dutifully paid versus what was actually spent on me. The flagrant custody agreement violations. The relentless pattern of favoritism I'd been documenting for months. Those paranoid, petty notes I'd kept. They became absolutely critical. Every single incident, every date, every damning quote. Arthur used it all to paint a devastating portrait of sustained emotional neglect. Sarah couldn't possibly claim I was exaggerating when I presented irrefutable evidence spanning over a year. Arthur also uncovered that she'd been claiming me as a dependent on her taxes, despite David covering the lion's share of my actual expenses. That revelation alone was enough to grab the judge's undivided attention. The custody modification filing was submitted 2 weeks later. Noah remained my unwavering anchor through it all. He'd come over to David's place after school, and we'd lose ourselves in video games or just shoot the breeze. For a few blessed hours, I could almost forget my life was a smoldering wreckage. "Your mom's always been intense," he mused one afternoon, as we battled through an online shooter. "Remember when she called the school because they gave you a B+ instead of an A-? Who even does that?" Sarah had claimed it was about standards. Noah called it control, man. "Same deal now," he added, "just a different package. She can't control you anymore, so she's losing it." He wasn't wrong. He rarely was. Even when I didn't want to hear it. Sophia, meanwhile, became something akin to a second mother during those tumultuous months. She ensured I ate proper meals, not just endless ramen. She inquired about my day without making it feel like an interrogation. She offered space when I craved solitude, and company when I needed it most. She also possessed a wonderfully dark sense of humor that perfectly suited the unfolding drama. "Your mother sounds utterly exhausting," she observed once, as we watched a cooking show. "Some people just need everyone around them to play a perfect part in their little story. And when you stop reading from the script, they have absolutely no idea what to do with you." The custody hearing loomed in June. Until then, I was officially residing with David, finishing my junior year from his address. My grades steadied. I picked up more hours at the grocery store. For the first time in years, life began to feel normal. Sarah, though, was relentless during the waiting period. First came the guilt trips, tearful messages about how much she missed me, how empty the house felt, how I was breaking her heart. When I remained silent, she pivoted to fury, accusations of abandonment, of selfishness, of letting David turn me against her. When that failed, she resorted to blatant bribery, a brand new car if I came home, a complete room redecoration, anything I desired. I responded to none of it. Arthur had strictly advised keeping all communication through legal channels. And frankly, I had nothing left to say to her. Chloe, meanwhile, was flourishing back at the house. She'd apparently circulated a story at her school that I'd been removed from the home for being violent and unstable. The rumor spread like wildfire. Some believed it. Most who knew me were thankfully skeptical. I didn't even bother defending myself. The custody hearing convened in June, right as summer began. The verdict: I would live with my dad, David, full-time. Sarah was granted optional visitation rights, solely at my discretion. Translation: I could see her if I chose to. But I didn't have to. And I didn't want to. Sarah emerged from that courtroom looking utterly shell-shocked, as if she'd been hit by a truck. She'd expected to win, she always expected to win. But Arthur had meticulously laid out every single piece of evidence. The judge was distinctly unimpressed by her flimsy excuses. The blatant favoritism, the documented financial disparities, the relentless pattern of broken promises, all of it, corroborated, verified, and utterly impossible for her to explain away. She tried to corner me outside the courthouse. Started walking purposefully towards me. David, without a word, stepped between us. No aggression, just a firm, unyielding presence. Not today, Sarah. Not anymore. She froze, looking at me over his shoulder. For a fleeting second, I caught something in her eyes. It might have been regret. I walked away, without a single glance back. That should have been the absolute end. But life, as it often does, delights in piling on when you least expect it. Mark had been a silent observer of the entire custody fiasco, and it prompted questions. Questions about why his wife seemed obsessively focused on her stepdaughter over her own biological son. Questions about my sudden, dramatic departure. Questions that inevitably led him to scrutinize their household finances with an intensity he'd never applied before. Mark was a numbers man, after all. Once he started digging, he unearthed everything. Sarah had been systematically skimming from their joint accounts for over a year. Not colossal sums, but consistently. A few hundred here, 1,000 there. All funneled into a personal account she'd never once disclosed. Money earmarked for household expenses was instead bankrolling shopping sprees, spa days, and God knows what else. That hidden account held over $12,000. From the moment they moved in together, she'd been siphoning off cash. Mark presented her with the damning bank statements, dated, highlighted, demanding an explanation. She had none. The explosive confrontation occurred approximately 6 weeks after my custody hearing. I wasn't present, of course, but the fallout traveled through the local gossip network at lightning speed. Noah's older sister, who worked at a salon in town, had the entire juicy story within 48 hours, courtesy of a client who lived 2 doors down from Sarah. Mark packed a bag, branded Sarah a liar and a fraud, and stormed out of the house they'd shared for less than 3 years. He filed for divorce that following Monday. Apparently, the ultimate breaking point was when he confronted her about the hidden account, and she tried to gaslight him. Told him he was confused, that the money was for emergencies, that he was paranoid. But Mark had spreadsheets. He had bank records. And he wasn't a naive teenager clinging to the belief his mother was a good person. When she finally realized she couldn't lie her way out, she resorted to desperate tears and apologies. But it was far too late. Mark had already contacted his lawyer. The house was in his name. The cars were leased through his company. Without his substantial income propping up their lavish lifestyle, Sarah couldn't possibly maintain any of it. The SUV was repossessed. The house went onto the market. She was forced to relocate to a cramped, dingy apartment across town, in the very same neighborhood she used to mock with snide comments every time we drove through. Funny how karma works, isn't it? Chloe, of course, returned to her biological mom's place. Her mom, from what I heard through the grapevine, wasn't exactly thrilled to have her back, especially since Chloe's entitled attitude hadn't mellowed in the slightest. The last update? She was working some soul-crushing minimum wage job, posting vague, self-aggrandizing motivational quotes on social media about toxic family members and knowing your worth. Noah sent me the real estate listing for Sarah's house when it went up for sale. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, motivated seller. He attached a gif of Michael Jackson eating popcorn. Couldn't have happened to a nicer person, he texted. I'd be a liar if I denied the profound satisfaction I felt, watching her entire carefully constructed world spectacularly crumble. She'd made me feel invisible, utterly worthless, effortlessly replaceable. Now, she was the one being replaced by the brutal consequences of her own choices. My dad's shop, finally, had turned a significant financial corner. Things at his place were stable, steadily improving. Sophia, with her quiet strength, helped me craft a budget, taught me practical cooking skills, and generally ensured I was ready to navigate adulthood without immediately collapsing. I heard absolutely nothing from Sarah during this period. I just assumed she was too consumed by her own self-inflicted catastrophe to spare a thought for the son she'd so casually discarded. That assumption held true until about 3 months into my freshman year of college. I was holed up in my dorm room, cramming for a midterm, when my phone vibrated with an unknown number. Normally, I'd let it go straight to voicemail, but some primal instinct compelled me to answer. Hello. Silence. Just shallow, hesitant breathing. Then, a voice I hadn't heard in almost 18 months. Liam, it's your mother. I didn't respond. Just sat there, phone pressed to my ear, waiting. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, she continued, her voice smaller, fragile, as if she'd been crying, or was on the verge of it. But I needed to hear your voice. I needed to tell you how sorry I am for everything. Still nothing from me. Things have been hard, she confessed. Mark's gone. Chloe went back to her mother's. I lost the house. I lost the car. I lost everything, Liam. I'm working 2 jobs now just to pay rent on this tiny apartment. And I'm alone. Completely alone. Her voice cracked, a desperate sob catching on that last word. A tiny, almost imperceptible part of me, the part that still harbored faint echoes of Friday night pizza and ice cream, of the woman who once was my whole world, wanted to feel something. Sympathy, perhaps, or at least pity. But that fragile part had been buried beneath years of being brutally reminded that I simply didn't matter. I made mistakes, she pressed on, when I offered no comfort. I see that now. I got so caught up in building this new family, in making Mark and Chloe happy, that I forgot about the family I already had. I forgot about you. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She paused, clearly expecting me to leap in, to reassure her, to grant her absolution. The old Liam, the innocent one, might have. I was hoping maybe we could meet up somewhere, get coffee, talk. I just want to see you, Liam. I just want a chance to fix things between us. I let the silence hang, thick and heavy, for a few more agonizing seconds. Then, I finally spoke. You know what I remember most about growing up? My voice was steady, flat. I remember you telling me we were a team. That you didn't need anyone else as long as you had me. I believed it so completely that when things started changing, when you started picking her over me, I thought I was the problem. I thought there was something profoundly wrong with me that made you stop caring. Liam, I never stopped, let me finish, I interjected, my voice still unnervingly calm. I'd rehearsed this conversation 100 times in my head, never truly believing I'd ever get to deliver it. You didn't stop caring because of anything I did. You stopped caring because someone newer, someone shinier, came along. Someone who made you feel like you were building something better, something more impressive than what you already had. And the second that happened, I became disposable. Just a leftover from a life you were done with. I could hear her muffled sobs now. So, no, I continued, unwavering. I'm not going to meet you for coffee. I'm not going to give you the chance to explain, or to apologize, or to make yourself feel better about what happened. You made your choices, Sarah. Now, I'm making mine. Please. Her voice was a ragged whisper. You're my son. You're all I have left. Funny, I said, letting that single word hang in the air, heavy with bitter irony. Because that's exactly how I felt when I was living in your house, watching you swap me out like I was broken goods. I guess now you know what that feels like. I can change. I can do better. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up before she could utter another sound. I blocked her number, placed my phone face down on my desk, and, with a strange sense of calm, returned to studying for my midterm. Here's what I want you to take from this: if you're struggling with anything similar, it is not your fault. Whatever you did or didn't do, however desperately you tried to fix things, their failure as a parent isn't a reflection of you. It's about them. You can't force someone to love you the way they should. You can only control your response when they don't. I chose to walk away. I chose to forge a life with people who consistently showed up, who genuinely cared. And honestly, my life is finally, truly good. Now, if this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt replaced or overlooked, tell me, what was your breaking point? And what did you do next? Share your thoughts below. I'm reading every single comment. And if you want to hear more stories like this, hit that subscribe button. It truly helps me bring more authentic narratives to life.